Welcome back. All right, news of the day video for all you fine people on the internet for your Friday, April the 3rd. We'll go ahead, we'll start at the top of the board. That is normally how these things work. Brady Tkachuk was fined for unsportsmanlike conduct and an incident that took place while he was on the bench towards a player who was on the ice. He slashed Malenstein to the face from the bench. And honestly, he was given a 2-minute penalty on the play. The fine tells you he probably should have got more than 2 minutes. They don't give a fine for something that should have been 2 minutes. And I will say this. I think that if you were a player on the bench, there might be certain situations where you're going to interact with a player if their stick comes into the bench or they fall into the bench, that kind of thing. But in general, anything where you're interfering with, or in this case, taking a penalty for against the players on the ice, I think that should be suspension territory, personally. That's just me. I know there'll be some argument about that, but I think you have to have that dividing line. I'm old enough to remember when those things would escalate very quickly, where anything from the bench and then both benches empty. So, yeah, the fine is done. It is a very small fine compared to what Brady Tkachuk makes for his overall income as a hockey player. So, yeah, at any rate, not entirely surprised. It's just like when you're watching a game that involves Florida or Ottawa and there's some kind of scrum on the ice and you see that one of the Tkachuks are involved, you go, yeah, that's about right. So, yeah, at any rate, you guys can let me know your thoughts. Just personally, I think the NHL needs to make sure there is no interaction where a player that's not on the ice is having any kind of interfering with what's going on the ice. Radko Gudas, lower body injury for him. Minchukov also, lower body injury. They are both out tonight for the Ducks. And Gauthier is out tonight, and he's unlikely to play tomorrow. So I haven't heard anything about Gudas and Minchukov's status for tomorrow. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Gudas doesn't play for a bit. He did not look right against Toronto. So my guess is that Gudas is going to miss some games. Minchukov, no idea. And Gauthier, it definitely sounds like he's not too far off. He's making progress. But he's not playing tonight, and he's unlikely to play the rest of this weekend. But we'll see what his status is for next week. Damon Severson has had shoulder surgery. He's out for the rest of the season. So Columbus has gone from being the hottest team in the NHL to, over the last 10 days now, they've had their struggles. They've had their setbacks. They find themselves back below the playoff line, and now they're going to be without Severson, who's had a pretty strong season for Columbus on their blue line. So we'll see how they adjust to this. It is a next man up mentality, of course, and if you're going to get to and do anything in said playoffs, you need to be able to roll with it when the injuries come in. So Severson's out, and for Columbus, they're just going to have to figure that out. Celebrini. So a lot of discussion about whether or not Celebrini is going to win the Hart. I'm going to agree that Celebrini should win the Hart. During the broadcast last night of the San Jose game, it was also asked, or no, it was actually during one of the other broadcasts where Cassie Campbell was saying that if the Sharks make it, then Ryan Warsofsky has to be a favorite for Coach of the Year. I would honestly say that Lindy Ruff and John Cooper at this point have had so much hype about them this season, it'd be a surprise if one of them didn't end up winning the trophy. And I think people realize, too, that it seems wrong that Cooper's never won the trophy. It seems really wrong. So while Warsofsky would probably get some interest, I will say Celebrini, Hart Trophy, that's a no-brainer. San Jose's nowhere near a playoff spot without the play of Celebrini. He is many points above second in scoring. I think it's 50 points ahead of second place in scoring on the team. So, yeah, Celebrini is a front runner. I think he's a lock if they make the playoffs. If they don't, he still could win it. It's very rare that a player who does not make the playoffs ends up winning the Hart Trophy. He absolutely could end up being that exception. Just like I said, the fact they're even in the running, it's Macklin Celebrini's team. Quinn Hughes. So it definitely sounds like from an interview Quinn Hughes did upon his return to Vancouver that he is glad to be out of Vancouver. He's glad to be out of the circus, the constant drama, and just having all these really good players and watching them all leave one after another. So, and I can imagine for players who are still there, they're probably tired of it as well. I've said with Vancouver, it definitely is an organization that needs a full reset. We'll see what that means for management. There's a lot of rumblings about whether or not they might jettison the GM? Do you get rid of the team president, which would be Rutherford? What do you do? But at any rate, it's not Hughes' problem, and it definitely sounds like Hughes is much happier in Minnesota. I'm happy for him. I honestly never really questioned his effort in Vancouver. Towards the very end, sure, you could tell he was mentally checked out. Just before the trade, you could see that. But up until then, he had always been great for the team. And he was selfish with the puck because a lot of the time the talent on the ice wasn't necessarily the type where it was at his level. So at any rate, I think he's had a really good run in Minnesota. We'll see what he's able to do in the playoffs for the Wild. If he's able to help Minnesota go on a run for the first time since 2003, and let's just say they go to the conference final, honestly, they'll offer Hughes, they'll just back up a Brinks truck and say, how much of this do you want with your contract? Because Quinn Hughes, of course, is able to negotiate a contract this summer. And I would not be surprised to see him extend with the Wild. Wouldn't surprise me at all. So with last night's results, both Toronto and Chicago are eliminated from the playoff chase. A lot of discussions about Toronto. I, of course, do the videos after the regular season's done, when the playoffs get rolling, talking about teams that have missed the playoffs. I do not start those videos now, as I kind of run out of things to talk about earlier in the run-up to the off-season. So I do delay those just a little bit. It has happened. It has happened where I've been like, oh, I'm out of that. I don't have any idea what I'm going to talk about today. So it does happen. I do run out of video topics. But yeah, so with Toronto being out, it is a surprise because they were first in the division. Like if you looked back at the start of this year, if I had said, well, Toronto's clearly going to miss the playoffs, there would rightfully have been a lot of people questioning what my methodology was for that. And if I'd said, well, Marner's gone, they would have said, nah, that's not it. In fact, I remember early in the season, Toronto fans saying we'd rather struggle more during the regular season and be a good playoff team, so it's fine that they're not necessarily great. But you have to make the playoffs, is what I kept saying. They have to make the playoffs first. If you don't make the playoffs, it doesn't matter how well built you are for the playoffs, which is still an ongoing debate. Chicago, it's not a surprise at all that Chicago missed the playoffs. What's good to see with Chicago is you can definitely see that progression, and I think things are exciting for them in the future. Frondell was taken aback by the fact that Coach Blashill is comparing him to Jonathan Toews and does see him as being another version of Jonathan Toews that potentially could mature into that kind of role, which really caught Frondell off guard, apparently. But he is scoring at about a point per game. He is just getting used to the North American National Hockey League game. I think Frondell's going to be a ridiculously good player for a long time, and that's on a Chicago team where Nazar already looks like a keeper. Bedard is going to get to 100 points, I think, next season. And I could see Chicago being a playoff team next season as well. We know they've got goaltending figured out with Knight. You've got Comesso coming up as well. Yeah, things look pretty darn good for Chicago later. Whereas with Toronto, it's a little bit of a different picture, and they're just getting into the retool process at this point in time. Falk is seen as questionable for tomorrow's game against the Rangers for Detroit. So Detroit gets that win last night. It was nice to see that desperation from Detroit finally showing up in their game. And they did get the 2 points there. Now they need to keep it up. The New York Rangers are a team that can be very unpredictable from one game to the next. They can look really good in one game, really bad in the next. And right now, with the pressure being off the Rangers, it really depends on how the game starts. If Detroit can jump on the Rangers early and get to a 2-goal lead, they have a good chance of winning that. But we'll see. Sal Monson of the Winnipeg Jets in concussion protocol got hurt last night. From a hit he received from Robertson, which the Jets didn't like, and it's a big part of why that game became really, really chippy and punchy later on. But Salamonson in concussion protocol, next man up. Another team dealing with that as well. There have definitely been some injuries on the blue line for the Winnipeg Jets. Not quite Ottawa level. I was looking for some kind of update on Tyler Clevin as well. I haven't seen an update on Tyler Clevin. All we know is that just the reaction on Travis Green's face when the trainer came out to the bench and basically whispered in his ear about, Clevin's status, you could just see he was just beside himself, flabbergasted. Like, it's another one. We've lost another one. So, it is a tough time of year, and that's why I've said for years now, I think having at least 8 or 9 NHL-level defensemen is really important, because it really is a battle of attrition when you're going through the NHL's 82-game season, and then that attrition can get worse in the playoffs. Utah has recalled Kevin Rooney from the AHL, so we'll see if he gets into any games for Utah. Rooney can be a good fourth liner. He is a player who can pass through waivers without any problems as well, so we'll see if he gets into any games for them. Makar, upper body injury for him, and as expected, he is not going to play for at least the next 2 games. I think at least is doing some heavy lifting here. I think there's some hope he'll be back for the 3rd game after that. We'll see. Nick Roy, upper body injury for him, and he is going to miss tomorrow's game against Dallas. So the Colorado Avalanche will be without Makar. They'll be without Roy for a game against Dallas. Now, of course, Dallas has had their own issues over the last few weeks, but they do seem to play their best against Colorado. So we'll see how that one goes tomorrow. For the New York Rangers, Vakanainen in a regular jersey at practice, so he's getting close to a return. We'll see how close he is. But, of course, for the Rangers, they're out of the playoffs anyways, so no need to rush Vakanainen back, right? The Pittsburgh Penguins, who've had their share of injuries, this one at least is one that's been out for a while. Caleb Jones has had shoulder surgery. He's out 4 to 6 months. So his season is done. We'll see if he's good to go for next season, and whether it's at the NHL level or the AHL level for Caleb Jones from here. But he really hasn't been like a big player for Pittsburgh or anything. So compared to previous videos where I've talked about Pittsburgh injuries, this one's relatively painless. Not for Caleb Jones, however. I'm sure shoulder surgery is not a whole lot of fun. But at any rate, there you go. Friday's news video and all that fun stuff. Just the 2 games tonight. Very full day tomorrow. So, like I said in the preview video I did earlier today, I'm going to be going to the Abbotsford Canucks game tonight. Yeah, they're not making the playoffs either, but should be a fun one. AHL games are always fun to see live, and they're a heck of a lot cheaper than going to an NHL game. Plus, with it being right here in the city in which I live, it's a much, much quicker trip to the game and from the game than it is from Vancouver, where it can be a bit of a headache. So thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. Hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. But thank you guys so much for watching. I will talk to you again soon.